and I'll see you all soon.
All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jovan Jocelyn. I go by Joe for short. Can you guys see my screen and everything okay?
Yep,
Okay.
looks good.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I'm an admissions recruiter at St. Petersburg College. So I'm here to talk about the admissions process at SPC, but I also want to go into some program information so everybody knows what we have. So without any further ado, I'm going to go into it. So what we offer is we have certificates, we have AA degrees, AS degrees, and baccalaureate degrees. All of these build upon each other. So what that means is if you get a certificate, you can move on and get an AA and use that certificate credit to build up that AA and so on and so forth. Okay. Certificates are short-term trainings that you can use to go directly into the workforce. Or if you're already in the workforce, you can use to build upon those skills and maybe get a promotion or something like that, right? An AA degree is our bread and butter at St. Petersburg College. So that's the 2-year plan where they're going to be doing the first 2 years at SPC and then transferring over to another institution like USF. All right. So that's what a lot of our students are doing. We have a plethora of programs for the associates in arts. So wherever you're going after SPC, we have a start for you at SPC. We also have an AS degree programs at SPC. So those are a little under 2-year programs where you can move on directly into the workforce, unlike the AA degree where you use it to transfer to another institution. The AS is going directly towards the workforce. And of course, we also have baccalaureate degrees. St. Petersburg College was one of the first state colleges to offer baccalaureate degrees, so we're very proud of that as well. So just to go a little deeper into our AS degrees again are degrees that you can obtain a little under 3 years. I wanted to highlight some of the programs that we have. You see the list here, so if you want to take a picture, you can do so, but I'm going to highlight just a few that I find interesting. One is our Rotc program, which is very interesting because we have students all the way in California doing our Rotc program, right? So you can do the in-person program or you can do it online no matter where you are in the US. We have our music industry and recording arts. So if you would like to be a music producer, you can do that here at SPC. We have hospitality and tourism management. This is Florida, so hospitality is very big here. So I wanted to highlight that. Also, another one that may not be so obvious, but is very popular actually, is funeral services. So we have one of the few programs in the area. So if you would like to move to a nearby area and not stay so close to home, then you could be very successful at a funeral services business, starting at SPC. I also want to point out the ones in red. The ones in red are part of our 50 plus club. At least that's what I call it. So these are programs where you can start and finish and go to work and make over 50 grand. So maybe a baccalaureate degree is not for you. You can do these programs and still make a decent living. I thought that was important to highlight. Moving on to our baccalaureate degrees at SPC, we have another screen here that you could take a picture of. I just want to highlight the College of Education. The reason why is because we need educators in the state of Florida. The state of Florida is providing a lot of scholarship opportunities. Path could let you know about some of them, but we can also do some on our end if you would like some more information after this session. So if you've never considered education and you want to do something that helps other people, this might be the route for you to go. Cost of tuition is one of our best selling points at St. Petersburg College because one of the best things that you can do for yourself and your family is not accrue college debt. So college debt is one of the biggest problems in the United States right now. There may be a lot of professionals that have very high paying jobs, but they've built a lot of college debt obtaining those degrees. So a way to avoid that is attending a state or community college like St. Petersburg College, where it's only $111.75 per credit hour. So that's just a little under $340 per class and under 7 grand for an entire AA degree. All right. What that means is you can get an AA degree, save yourself some money, and then transfer to that university that you would like that degree to say USF or FSU. Right. So it's just a smarter thing to do these days, depending on your options, right? But if you'd like to continue and get a baccalaureate degree at St. Petersburg College, you could do so for around under $16,000, depending on the program that you'd like to go to. So interesting facts about cost of tuition at SPC. Now, there's a lot that I could say about this screen, but I just want to highlight on a couple things. One is that it's going to be flexible options at SPC. So if you want to go to school in person, you can. If you want to go to school in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, you can. If you want to get a job and work your schedule around that, you can. If you want to take 6 classes a semester or just 1 class a semester, you can. We have online options, and we also just recently introduced our live online option. The live online option is basically set up just like the classroom setting, where you have to have the class at certain time and on certain days. So let's say Tuesdays from 4 to 6:30, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 6:30, you would need to be in front of your laptop and logged onto Zoom. And that way you can connect with your instructors, ask them questions, and not need to be there in person and risk anything. All right, so that's all I'm going to highlight about this slide. Didn't want to go too deep, just want to let everybody know that there's plenty of options when it comes to taking classes on the college level at SPC. All right, and there's also many ways that we are focused on your success. This is probably my most favorite slide. So we have academic advisors that are assigned to you. How that benefits you is that they're going to know your story. So if you work full time, you have kids at home, or if you have 2 jobs while you're going to school, they're going to know those things, and they can properly direct you during your experience at St. Petersburg College. If you need help at SPC, we also have free tutoring at all of our campuses, but we also offer them online. So if you need the assistance, we have it here for you. If you struggle in your classes, it would only be because you choose not to get the help that is offered. And it's already free because you already paid for it through your student activity fees if you're a student, so why not take advantage of it? All right. We also have personalized academic pathways, which means that all of our programs are aligned with careers thereafter. So we're not going to set you up for any career that's made up and make pretend, and when you graduate, you can't find employment. All right. We have our clubs and organizations at St. Petersburg College. So if you'd like to attend and become the president of a particular organization or start your own club, you can do that at SPC. We have a long list. Each campus has different clubs and organizations. But if, like I said, if you don't find the club that you would like at that particular campus, you start your own. All you need is 6 like-minded people and an advisor based on that campus. So one to highlight is the Student Government Association. I just want to touch on that very quickly because they have major money in the Student Government Association. They kind of oversee all of the other clubs, and if other clubs want money, they buy those fees through the SGA. So going to an interview can really make a difference if you have been in SGA, because you could say you have not only leadership experience, but you also have that fiscal experience, which goes a long way. We also have a very interactive career services team that helps you prepare resumes. They help you with mock interviews and help you get internships that we all know oftentimes turn into jobs. We also offer free PSTA rides for all students. So if you have a valid SPC ID, you can ride the bus for free. And I promise I didn't try to make that rhyme. I'm just naturally gifted like that. Moving on. So these are some of the programs that are very special to SPC because this is guaranteed admission to USF. So Mr. Cason is going to speak on USF, but I'm going to show you how you can transfer from SPC to USF so very smoothly. How you can do that is within the FUSE program. So this is a program that has a list of different options of education that you can join SPC, do 2 years, and then transfer to USF, guaranteed admission into that particular program. So we have a lot of transfer plans, but none of them have guaranteed admission to a particular program at a particular university, but you can do so with the FUSE program. It is limited to these programs that we have on the screen here. If you would like to take a picture, you can do so. If you want more information, you could see me after the presentation. But this Fuse program is highly sought after. It's one that we're very proud of. I'm not sure if Kason will touch on it or not, but it is a great way to save yourself some money starting at SPC and finishing at USF. We kind of have the same ordeal with FAMU. So it's the same setup where you get guaranteed admission into these particular programs that I will show you in just a second. The only difference is at USF, you have to identify that you would like to be in the Fuse program before 30 credits. You have to be under 30 credits. With the Ignite program, you could be 1 or 2 classes away from graduation. You can indicate to your advisor that you would like to be an Ignite student and become an Ignite student. It's one of the great benefits of the Ignite program. All right. So I want to list the programs that you can go into. The list is a little shorter than the USF programs, but beneficial nonetheless. If these areas are anything that you're interested in, we have a great transfer plan with Ignite. And just to go into a little further detail about those things, it's kind of like a dual enrollment situation where if you would like to attend that other campus for their games, you can see their counselors, you can use their facilities, the library. So it's kind of preparing you for that other institution before you even get there. Not to mention other opportunities within Fuse and Ignite programs as well. All right. So we've covered some things, but I also want to cover the admissions process. How do you get started at St. Petersburg College? It's very easy. You can do so online. There's a link here on the screen if you'd like to take a picture of it. It's very easy to remember, www.spcollege.edu. You fill out the application. It only costs $40 to do so and to be submitted. During that application process, there is a couple of things that we're going to be looking for. I say 3 areas that we really focus on. One is your personal information, contact information. So that's obvious, and every institution is going to want that. The next thing that we really want to focus on is the area of study. That's very important when you're going through the application process because of 2 reasons. One, we want to align you with a proper advisor once you're a student, and that's the way that we do that. The other reason why it's a very important part of the process is because a lot of high school students just aren't sure what they want to do yet, and that's okay. So if you haven't heard that yet, let me be the first one to tell you that is okay. There are a lot of students in your situation who feel the same way. There are a couple ways that we can help you within that process of choosing a major that's right for you. We do have an option online where you can go take a series of tests to see what would align with your personality. So that is an option as well. But in that application, when you select a program, that will properly align you with an advisor. So just try to do your research before becoming an SPC student. And if you end up changing your major at some point, you know, hopefully it will be before 30 credits or so before you really start to delve into your program so you can easily transfer over to another program. Also, during the admissions process, but not really part of the SPC side, is financial aid. So how am I going to pay for college? So financial aid is the FAFSA process, which you can do at fafsa.gov. And filling out the FAFSA would be what you need for any institution. So the good thing about the FAFSA is you can list up to 10 different institutions on there. So if you're not quite sure which one you're going to be going to, you can list several. You would list SPC school code, and if you do become an SPC student, it would automatically connect to your student portal, okay? So it's not like you would need to keep going back and forth between the FAFSA and SPC. You would simply log onto your student portal, register for classes, and then go see the aid that is there for you. All right. Another thing I'd like to touch on very shortly, as I've already touched on it a couple times, is meeting with your advisor. Very important step when you're getting started at SPC. I know that you guys are brilliant, but we want to make sure that everybody is set up with the proper classes when they're just starting at SPC. If you're a first-time SPC student, Please make sure that you connect with your advisor to make sure that you are taking the classes that are going to your particular program of choice. All right. When you meet with that advisor, they're going to let you know whether you need to take the PERT test or not. If you've done the ACT or SAT in your high school, we may be able to use those scores, but your advisor is really going to be able to tell you if you need to take the PERT test or not. All right. Now, I wanted to move on. Now that I've already covered how you can apply to SBC, I said that it would cost $40, but I'd actually like to give you a giveaway right now. This is a free giveaway. This is where you can apply to St. Petersburg College for free. We do October application drives at all of the high schools in Pinellas County. We even touch some of the schools that aren't Pinellas County schools. Right? So I have the list here. If anybody wants to take a picture, please do so. If you can't take the picture, I can give you the information of all those schools after the presentation today. All right, so this is the free giveaway. You can apply to SBC for free. And just to drop this extra information, applying to SBC does not mean that you have to attend St. Petersburg College. If you're looking at different institutions and you'd like to apply to SBC for free, just as a contingency plan, it's just a good idea if you don't make it into that institution that you're intending on going to. So I highly suggest that while at your high school, you fill out this application for free on these days that are indicated here on the slide, okay? All right. This is the end of my presentation, but I would like to end off with one quick thing. I do realize that I'm under the 20 minutes, so if you don't mind, I'd like to say something very quickly. It's not geared towards SBC, but it's a little something that I've learned along the way that I like to share with people. I started off as an electrician years ago, and I did the electrical school, which every electrician goes to. And I learned electrical theory and learned that batteries and capacitors have the same thing. All right, they have an energy that's stored inside of them, right? Can anybody guess what that energy is called? This is where I'm going to show my cheesy side. So that energy that's stored inside them is called potential, right? And by now you probably know where I'm going with this, right? So as an electrician, we went to the shop one day before going to a job, and I was there with a more experienced electrician, and I asked him, hey, those batteries and capacitors over there, they're leaking, you know, why do we keep them? Aren't they bad? If they're leaking, aren't they bad? And he was like, yeah, unfortunately, those ones that are leaking, they are no longer good, right? So where are you going with this, Joe? Where I'm going with this is, tonight you're going to hear from St. Petersburg College, or you've heard from St. Petersburg College, and you're also going to hear from USF, right? Everybody has the great thing called potential in so many different ways, right? However, not all potential is limitless. Not all of them are timeless. Some potential has a certain time frame and window, right? So what I would like to suggest to everybody, what I pray for everybody, is that they live up to their full potential, no matter what it may be in education or not. Meet your full potential, because it is a double-edged sword. If it's not used within a certain window, depending on what that potential is in, then it may go to waste. So I'll end it with that. Again, my name is Joven Jocelyn. I go by Joe for short. Here's my contact information. You can take a picture of it, but I will be here for Q&A if there's a Q&A at the end. All right. Thank you very much.
Actually, Joe, we do have a couple of questions in the chat. So the first question was from Daniel, and he asks, if I am enrolled in the dual enrollment program, how does that work?
All right. I'm trying to unshare my screen. Okay, so if you're in the dual enrollment program and you want to apply to St. Petersburg College, you would not go through the normal application process. You would do something called our supplemental application. So if you're going to be at any of the high school drives that I just mentioned, then we will walk you through 2 applications. We'll walk everyone through the general application and also the supplemental application. So if you attend that event, you'll get assistance with that. But if you're going to do it on your own, you could reach out to me if you have any problems. What you want to do is go to the SPC website and type in supplemental application or dual enrollment, and you'll see the supplemental application link there.
Awesome, thanks. When you were speaking about the FUSE program and the IGNITE program, we had a question from Valerie, and she wanted to know, what about UCF?
Yes, so we do have a program with UCF as well. Here's the thing though, I don't know the details. I couldn't tell you the specifics, but we do have connections with UCF as well. So what you could do is you can leave your information, or you can take mine, and I can get you connected with the person who has all the answers. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks. We have another question. Do you have handbooks for the students to look at about the school and the programs?
Yes, so we have different kinds of handbooks. We have our general handbook that is also a planner, is the one that most students carry around, and it has a general overview of our programs. But if you want more detailed information, I have other pamphlets that I take out to events with me that I can give you. I suggest that you look on the website though. If you want program information, all of that information is on the website, and if you need help navigating that, reach out to me at any time, and if I don't answer, I definitely will get back and help you find the information that you need. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And Danica has just posted the link to the website in the chat, so you can access it really easily there. Okay, another question from Daniel. He wanted to know, does the FUSE program have electrical engineering?
It does not, unfortunately. So, one of the things about these programs is it is limited to what we offer. The only thing that I hope for is that the expansion of these programs. I'm not certain what tailors the making of different programs or what calls for different programs, but hopefully we can expand upon both the FUSE and IGNITE program. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And after 2 years at SPC, this is from Lisa. After 2 years at SPC, can I transfer to a school in Tennessee?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So St. Petersburg College is regionally accredited, which means that these credits are going to be transferable to almost any institution that you go to. The only problem that you would have is if you're going to something that's more like a trade school or something like that, where the credits it's not college credit based. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Can I jump in there real quick, Joven?
Sure.
And what you want to regionally accredited credits generally transfer to other regionally accredited institutions. Just like Joven said, what the only problem you have is if there is it's like a trade school or something like that. But keep in mind that it also transfers to program equivalency. So for example, if you're going to a school that doesn't have the major that you want, there is literally nowhere for those credits to go. So if you're going to another institution, you have to consider whether or not the major that you're currently in, they also have, because if they don't, there's no place for those credits to transfer to.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
Sure. Joe, we got another question. After I finish SPC, can I transfer to UF?
Yes. So here's what I like to tell everybody. So when you first start at SPC, you're going to be assigned an advisor. You can connect with that advisor and tell them immediately what your plans are, and they're going to make sure that you have all the things that you need to transfer to that other institution. But what I also like to tell students is get connected with that other institution, right? They say start with the end in mind, right? Always start with the end in mind. So me personally, I would get connected with both institutions during the process to make sure that the classes that I'm taking will properly align and transfer over to that other program. But when you start with SPC, we're going to prepare you for where you're going to next. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I think that addresses the next question too. It's, can programs from your institution benefit me for electrical engineering? So that's what you're talking about. You're going to build to the next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we just have another question from Cheryl. I noticed that the FUSE program does not include computer science. I just wanted to clarify that if my son completed an AA in computer science at SPC, he would still be eligible to apply under the 2+2 program to another institution under guaranteed admission. I think this is going to fall under some of those limited access programs. Kaysen, are you going to cover some of that information?
Yeah, I can go over some of that briefly, but what you're going to want to make sure, just like Joan was saying, is that from SPC to most of the state institutions, we have something called the Universal Numbering System. What that means is that ENC 1101 at SPC should be ENC 1101 at USF and FSU or whatever. So if you look at the curriculum, like just like Jovan said, keep the end in mind, work backwards. Look at the curriculum for the program that you're interested in and just try to make sure that those classes align as closely as possible. And you shouldn't have any issues with that transfer process, because the first 2 years of any institution is going to be general education requirements, general ed classes. So what SPC does is they make sure that the gen ed that you have goes to the requirement for the program that you're going into. Their advisors are very good about making sure that stuff aligns. So that's basically what you want to make sure is those classes are going to match with the gen ed requirements for the program you are transferring to.
Yeah. And I think I might owe Kason some of my check selling the programs we have at SPC.
And can you also add, is it just completion of the courses that they look at for admission, or do some programs also look at grades in those courses for transfer?
So for transfer, so every institution is going to have different requirements when it comes to students transferring over. Now, the good thing to know about that is when you're transferring after 2 years, it's going to be a lot more lenient than the initial going into, like, starting as a freshman at a particular institution. If you're going to be transferring over, it's a lot more lenient. And like I just have to refer back to what I said earlier. When you know what institution that you'd like to transfer to, as soon as you figure that out, get connected with your advisor at SPC to let them know, and they'll help you make sure you have a smooth transfer process. Yeah.
Okay, our next question also addresses some of that. If I go to SPC for my AA degree, will I be able to transfer to Hillsborough Community College for their sonography training program?
Okay, so I like that question. So why do that? No, I'm kidding. But so the credits will transfer. The thing is, it's all about the program, the courses within that particular program. So if the courses align, then yes. But if there's a course that we have here that you were taking at SPC that doesn't properly align with that program, it wouldn't apply, just like you would at transferring to any institution. Any institution you're going to, it really doesn't matter what credits you have on hand. It's what they require within that particular program for graduation of that program. If you don't meet them, then they're going to need you to do those classes. So I would say if you're transferring from SPC to SPC to HCC, and they have a program, the program that you just mentioned is not a program that we have. So I don't foresee a smooth transfer, but what I would do in that particular situation, if you're trying to switch over to HCC from SPC, is get connected with, your advisor from the beginning and let them know what you're trying to do, so that you can take all the classes that you can and that will apply at SPC before transferring over to HCC and taking any unnecessary courses.
Awesome, great. That was the last question in the chat. Did anybody else have any questions for Joe before we move on? We'll give you a chance to unmute yourself or to add it into the chat. Oh, we do have a hand up. Jonah, do you have a question? It looks like you may be on mute, Jonah.
Oh, Jordan?
The names sound the same, but no, I have Jonah first, and then I've got you next. Jonah, are you able to either unmute yourself? Let me see if I can. I do not have the capability. If you can either unmute yourself, or you could type in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yes, I'm a senior, and I was wondering if I could get enrolled in recording arts. Do you guys have recording arts at St. Pete College?
Yes, we have the Mirror program. So it's music industry and recording arts. Yes, we do. It is a AS degree program. We do not have a bachelor's level yet, but we do have that AS program at SPC. Yes. Yeah.
All right, thanks. How do I get enrolled?
So you would go through the normal process of applying. So I don't know if your high school was on this list that I showed earlier, but if they have an application drive, I would apply to SPC that during that application drive. That way you can apply for free and then apply under the Mirror program. Yep.
Is Lakewood High School on there?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's where I graduated from. So it's most definitely on the list. Yes. Before this meeting is out, I'll let you know what day Lakewood Drive is. Let's see.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry
It's
about that. Can I go next?
Yep. Is it Jose Jordan?
Yes, I'm Jose Jordan. I'm a senior at Seminole High School. One of the schools that you listed it in the high schools that actually apply. So, in August 21st is from 9 a.m. from 9:30 to 12:30 p.m. is when I have to sign up for free. Now, do you have any programs for acting? Because I would like to work in the movie industry, either as a film producer or like a.
Yeah. So unfortunately, no, I don't believe we have anything for in that particular area, unfortunately. But if you would like to get a 4-year degree, you can definitely start off at St. Petersburg College and then transfer.
Okay, I just wanted like a program for or film producing or anything film related.
Film, I mean, we have a digital arts program that may fit, but it depends. If you're like, it depends on which particular area that you would like to go into. But yes, under our digital arts program, we do have particular programs where you can learn some filming skills, things like that. But if you're trying to get a 4-year degree, then you would want to start at SPC and then transfer over.
Okay, I received a message that they have theater classes, or that can work. Theater classes at least.
Absolutely. If you're talking about an AA degree, that would feed into a bachelor's program. Yes.
Okay, got that. Because I would love to have that. Because I would like to be an actor, like a really big actor, or maybe like a simple actor.
Absolutely. And listen, I wish you all of the best with that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll mute myself now.
Thanks, Jose. Joe, I did miss a question. They're asking if ROTC is offered at SPC.
You know what? I don't want to say no. I've never heard of ROTC at SPC before. Yeah, I couldn't say no, but what
I'll
I
help
can
you out with that one.
Okay.
Only because I see them practicing all the time. SPC does have a partnership with USF St. Pete. So the actual ROTC meets here at the USF St. Pete campus, but it is open to SPC students. Okay, we are going to move on to cases. You can keep putting questions in the chat. We can definitely go back to it, but we want to respect everybody's time. And so I'm going to hand it back to Danica, and she can introduce our next guest. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, for taking over all the Q&A. So our next guest is going to be Kaysen Watson, who we've heard a little bit from already. Kaysen is an admissions counselor for the University of South Florida in total, but also works with us at St. Petersburg campus. So Kaysen, take it away.
All right, thank you, Danica. Like we said, my name is Kaysen Watson. I'm one of the admissions counselors at USF. I actually am housed on the St. Petersburg campus, but I cover the entire USF system. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm throwing my email address and my number in the chat. Just so if you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to me afterwards, or after we're done with the presentation. But I'm going to go ahead and start out with a little bit about the admission requirements and things like that for USF, a little bit of background information, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let me know if you can You see my, let me go over here, sorry. Stop sharing and then reshare. There we go.
Yep, I see it.
All right, fantastic. So USF, up until very recently, we were 3 separately accredited institutions. Now we're under 1 accreditation, meaning that it's a little bit easier for students to move throughout the USF system. So if you apply to USF, you are a USF student. When you do the application, you can select which campus you want to attend, but for all intents and purposes, you are a USF student and you can attend whatever campus the classes that are available for you are on. So for example, if you are a St. Pete student and you want to attend classes at the Tampa campus, you can do that. You can attend classes at Sarasota, Manatee. There's nothing really stopping you from doing that. The only kind of restriction that we have is really going to be major specific. So what I mean by that is that if you're an engineering student, all the engineering facilities and classes and stuff like that, for the most part, are going to be on the Tampa campus. So that's kind of the only restriction. If you're looking at certain like graphic arts is mainly going to be on the St. Petersburg campus. You still have the ability to attend classes at different campuses, but by and large, your classes for certain majors are going to be on the campus that they're housed on. So a little bit background information about USF. It was founded in 1956. We have close to 50,000 students. Usually I bring that up when students are like apply and they're like, oh, I sent my transcript like a week ago. How long does it take? I'm like, it could take 4 to 6 weeks for us to process because we get literally hundreds of documents a day. So that's one of the reasons why our deadlines are set up in the way that they are. So keep that in mind when you're going through the application process. Is you want to, if you're interested in USF, you're going to want to make sure that you apply early. And I would say that for any of the SUS or state university system schools, they're going to have similar timeframes and processes for the application process. So like I said before, we are 1 USF geographically distributed. You can attend classes at any of the campuses that are available. The main thing that you'll notice is that there's very different feels at each one of the campuses for the USF system. So if you're looking at the large campus feel, you're looking at like a big university, you're going to want to look for the Tampa campus. Tampa campus is where the majority of our students are. They're the majority of our majors, and it's more of a big kind of I like to compare it to UF and UCF in size and scope. So it's kind of your big traditional college field. Then we have the St. Petersburg campus, which is a more community-based campus. Your professors are going to know who you are. I think the largest class we have on the entire campus only seats about 100 students. So your professors are going to know who you are. As a USF St. Pete alum, I can speak personally to the fact that there was times when I was working full-time when I'm going to school, and there was times I had missed class. And I had professors email me when I missed classes about, hey, I see you weren't in class today. Is everything okay? Do you need me to send you the notes, kind of thing? So we're more of a community-based campus. I like to compare us to SPC in kind of they're a little bit more concierge. They're kind of everyone knows each other kind of situation. And USF Sarasota Manatee is a smaller campus. Are essentially one building. It's a little bit more broken down, but they are a more specialized campus. The specialization over there would be our hospitality program as well as cybersecurity. So it's kind of the breakdown of all the 3 campuses. If you want to, I would suggest if you're interested, visit all 3 campuses just to see what the feel is and see if this is going to be something that is going to be a good match for how you operate as a student. I will say that personally, I was more of a small campus student, and some of you guys might be more of a big campus student. So it really depends on what's going to be the best fit for you as a student. So like I said before, there's some key differences between the campuses. USF St. Pete is kind of a waterfront location. USF Sarasota is more of a specialized campus, and USF Tampa is kind of our large campus. And a little bit of information about that is the USF Tampa.
Oh, I think we have some technical issues. Let's see, I think we temporarily. Oh, there you go. He's back.
Oh, okay, I'm back. Go ahead and share my screen. That was weird. So let me go ahead and go. So one of the things that has changed drastically about USF with the consolidation is the fact that we are now a preeminent institution. I get questions about what does preeminent mean. There's only the 3 preeminent institutions in the state of Florida. There's UF, FSU, and us. And there's certain things that you have to meet to be considered a preeminent institution. You have to have certain graduation rate for your student. You have to have certain retention rate. You have to have certain amount of students involved in research. And there's kind of a little bit more information about what preeminence means. What really that means for the student is that there's a lot more funds available for things like research. USF is one of the few institutions I know of where you can get involved in research your freshman year. There are a lot of students, especially on the St. Petersburg campus, where if you're interested in like something like biology, I have no freshman students that are doing research and have actually had their name published on research papers on studies. So that's not something that is common throughout state universities. So that's something that I think is really, really awesome, especially if you're looking at some of the hard sciences like the biology program or like chemistry or anything like that. These are some of the majors that we have at USF. They're some of the more popular majors. We have 200 plus majors. And I will encourage you that if you're interested in any of one of the majors, do some research on it on the website. One of the reasons why I think the website, and this is for any institution, SPC, any of us, one of the reasons why I prefer the research on the website method is mainly because when it comes to paper and pamphlets and things like that, if we print out a bunch of pamphlets, and let's say that something happens mid-semester and they have to change the program, they're adding a requirement or something like that, there is no way to fix those pieces of paper. We can fix the website instantly. If something changes, something's updated, something is, a deadline is changed, we can always update that information instantly on the website. We cannot do that on pamphlets. So the website's always going to have the most up-to-date and accurate information. So if you're interested in USF or any of the state institutions, any college or university, I would suggest going to their website, and I just use it like Google. Go to the search bar and type in, whatever it is that you're looking for, and you will find the information that you need. And if not, you can always contact one of the admissions counselors on, contact me, and I can go through and help you navigate some of those things. So freshman admissions, this is what you need to do to be admitted to USF. USF has what's called a merit-based evaluation system. What that means is that we only look at a couple things when you apply to USF. We don't have letters of recommendation, we don't have essays, we don't have academic resumes. We're only looking at your application, and you can apply through the USF application on the website, the Common App or the Coalition app, the application fee, and then we are looking at your high school transcript. When you submit the high school transcript to us, we're going to reevaluate it based on your core academic courses. We're going to look at your math, your English, your social science, natural sciences, 2 years of a foreign language. And then we're going to weight the GPA based on honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment. So we're going to weight the GPA based on those standards as well. So students will ask me, do we use a weighted GPA or a standard GPA? We use a recalculated GPA. USF recalculates your GPA based on our standards. So once again, we're going to take your honors, AP, IB, and we're going to weight those courses, and we're also going to look at your core academic courses. So let's say, for example, you are doing something like weight training. You're probably in way better shape than I am, but we're not including that in your GPA recalculation. We're going to look at your academic courses because really that's what we're interested in, how well you're doing academically. So then we also look at your SAT or ACT scores, and we are going to super score. So if you take the SAT or ACT multiple times, we're going to give you the highest score in each section of any one of those tests. So I suggest applying early and sending us the documents, and we'll go from there. So these are some of the deadlines you want to keep in mind when you're applying to USF. The deadline you're going to look at is priority deadline, which is November 1st. That's not listed here, but you're going to want to submit the application as early as possible because everything we do is based on competitive enrollment. So what that means is that the admission requirements, the GPA, things like that are basically based on the group of students that are applying at the same time that you're applying. So that's how we derive the average for what the GPA and SAT and ACT scores are. So the earlier you apply, the better your chance, and you can always send us updated information later. So for example, if you apply before November 1st, submit the application to us, and then we submit, and we're probably not going to submit admissions decisions until mid-October either way. So when you're submitting the application to us, keep in mind that There's going to be a little time before you submit that information. And also, as we get closer and closer to the start of the term, it gets more and more competitive. So a student that applies earlier has a better opportunity than a student that applies later. So as I said before, for the recalculated GPA, an additional 0.5 for weight is going to be added to your pre-AP, pre-IB courses, your honors courses. For AP, IB, ACE, Cambridge, and dual enrollment, we add an extra point of weight. So for example, if you get a C in a IB course or an AP course, that would be traditionally a 2.0, we would weight that as a 3.0. And that is going to be calculated into your GPA. So we also super score the SAT or ACT. And so keep that in mind as well. And pay attention to, we pay attention to your grade trends. So we're going to look at if you're doing well. If you had a rough freshman year and you improved over that, we're going to keep that in mind as well when we're looking at the recalculation. So those are some of the factors that we look at when we are evaluating the student for admission to USF. So the average GPA for admitted freshmen for last year was a 3.9 to a 4.8. Once again, that's a recalculated GPA, weighted, and then the SAT, and these are super scored SAT or ACT. Our summer requirements are a little bit more reasonable, but if a student applies, I always suggest apply for the term that you're interested in, and we are going to evaluate you for every term that you might be admissible for. So when you're applying, apply for the term that you're interested in. If you apply for fall, which is the most competitive term, we'll review you for the fall. If you're not meeting the requirements for the fall, we're going to review you for the summer. If you're not meeting the requirements for the summer, we're going to review you for the spring. So there are some cases students apply for the fall, but they're admitted for the summer. That's because we review you for every term that you'd be admissible for. If you're reading any of the requirements from the fall, which is most competitive, to the spring, we are going to admit you for whatever term you are admissible for. So recommendations: apply early. Once you apply, as soon as you hit submit, within 24 to 48 hours, you should get an email from USF telling you to set up your Oasis account. Your Oasis account has access to your admission status. It's going to tell you if you're missing anything. It's going to tell you whether or not we've made a decision. All the information for the student is going to be available in that account as soon as you submit that application. So you can see whether or not you've been admitted. You can see whether or not you were missing any documents. You can see whether or not your application is complete 24 to 48 hours after you submitted your application. So make sure that you check your email, and you're going to want to set up that account. If you have any questions about setting up the account after you've applied, you can reach out to the admissions office and we can kind of walk you through that process. And also, if you have the opportunity to, I would suggest taking both the SAT or ACT. I know that is not an option for all students, but if you do have the opportunity to, some students just happen to do better on one versus the other. So it's better to just have both of them taken so you can see which one's going to be the test that you do better on. You're going to need to have at least one SAT or ACT done before the end of your junior year. Because when we're evaluating you for admission, we're not going to know what your senior year grades are. We're going to be able to see what classes you're taking, but the grades are not going to be finalized until essentially after you've been admitted to USF. The GPA that we use to admit you to the University of South Florida is your final junior year GPA. Especially if you're in the Pinellas County area, we don't get those finalized grades until after you've already graduated. So we're admitting students based on your final junior year grades. So if you're applying to USF, we have our freshman admission scholarships. These are scholarships that you don't have to apply for. You are automatically going to be offered these scholarships if you are applying before the January 15th deadline, and you have a completed file. And we also have other scholarships that you can apply for, but these are our admission scholarships. Once again, you don't have to apply for these. If you're submitting your application, your SAT or ACT scores, and your transcripts, and you're meeting these requirements, we're automatically going to offer you one of these admission scholarships. And that's going to be in addition to the other scholarships that you would be eligible for, National Merit, College Board Recognition, USF Honors Scholarship. There's a couple different other scholarships you can apply for. And there's also on our website, our foundation scholarships. There's quite a few different options for scholarships for USF that you can apply for. And this is our the requirements for our honors college. Honors college is we no longer have a automatic admission for the honors college. You would have to apply for the honors college. It includes some of our accelerated BS to MD program, which is very popular. Our accelerated 3+3 bachelor's GED program. It's a partnership we have with Stetson. So if you're interested in law school, this is going to be the program that you are going to want to apply for. If you have any more questions about the honors college, please feel free to shoot me an email, and I will get you connected with our honors college representative. They can give you a little bit more information about what the requirements are and what you would need to do to be admitted. So for transfer students, there's a couple different things for transfer students. It really depends on how many transferable credits you have. So if you have 12, we only consider you a transfer student if you have 12 or more transferable credits after you graduate high school. So if you're a dual enrollment student, we are considering you a freshman for admission purposes. So we're looking at you as a freshman for admission purposes if you are a dual enrollment student. If you have 12 or more transferable credits after you graduated high school, then we would consider you a transfer student. So transfer students are looked at in 3 different levels. We have a lower level, mid-level, and upper level. If you are receiving an AA or 60 transferable credits from SPC, you are considered an upper level transfer student. And that means that we don't need any of your high school information. We just need your SPC or HCC or whatever other institutions transcripts that you would have. If you have 60 or more transferable credits, and an AA from SPC or HCC guarantees you 60 transferable credits. If you have an AA, you are guaranteed 60 transferable credits, which makes you an upper level transfer, which means that we don't look at any of your high school information. So the AA is a lot more straightforward to transfer than any of the other levels of transfer students. If you are interested in what the process would be for certain majors, I would suggest going to our transfer page, USF. It's USF transfer requirements. If you Google that or just put it on your search page, it will come up and you can select selective majors, and that will tell you what the requirements are for our business. College of Business is going to be a little bit different than let's say like engineering. Some of those requirements are going to be a little bit different, and it breaks down the classes that you would need to take to be transferable to some of those programs. So these are some of the transfer scholarships that are available to us, or to you, I apologize. So if you're transferring, you do have options for scholarships as well. And so USF, the tuition rate, we're actually, I think, the second lowest tuition rate in the state of Florida as far as state universities go. We're not, on SPC level, but we are fairly affordable for a state university. So if you are filling out the application, make sure that if you are a Florida resident, that you're going to want to make sure that is corrected up to date, because that's going to determine what your tuition rate is. And most of the questions I get on a regular basis are about residency requirements. So if you're planning to live on campus, we have residency hall options on both the St. Petersburg campus and the Tampa campus. Obviously, Tampa is going to have a little bit more options for you than St. Pete would, and Sarasota currently does not have residency, but they have some options for housing around the campus that you'd have to contact the campus directly for. But USF Sarasota and USF St. Pete does have on-campus housing if you are interested in living on campus at both of those one of those campuses. So these are the options at the St. Peter's or the Tampa campus, and these are the options at the St. Petersburg campus. We actually just built a brand new residence hall. It's called Osprey Suites, and we also have a brand new dining facility. So I think we have close to 1,000 beds now for the St. Petersburg campus as far as housing goes. We also have quite a few options when it comes to clubs, organizations. It's a similar process if you want to start a club organization to something like SPC, where you could just get together with a group of your friends. There's 700 plus clubs or organizations throughout the USF system. We have 40 fraternities and sororities, 35 international clubs and societies. We have sports clubs. We have Division I sports, men's baseball, basketball, cross country, football, golf, soccer, tennis, women's basketball, cross country. The only sports team that we have housed on the St. Petersburg campus, unfortunately, is sailing. but everything else is going to be on the Tampa campus. So it's for anyone that's interested in sports. So if you're interested in any of our campuses, you can either do an on-campus tour, or we also have virtual tours if you're interested in that. So if you're interested in that, feel free to go to our website and you can register for a campus tour at any one of our campuses. So I'm going to go ahead and share and go to the chat, see if I can answer some of your questions. You can also unmute, or I'd love to have some assistance from the lovely Sandy when it comes to the questions.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to ask them. I am going to let everyone know that we are running a little behind. And I appreciate it. It's because we're getting all these great questions. So I'm going to go through some with the chat. Kason, will you be staying with us to the end, or do you have to run off for another engagement?
I can stay for until about 7:30.
Okay. All right. Let's go through the questions we have. The first question was, does the AP score, I'm assuming the test score, count on admission to USF?
So the AP score does not count towards admission. What the AP score counts towards is whether or not you will be receiving college credit. So the AP score just determines whether or not we're giving you college credit, doesn't necessarily determine your admissibility. The GPA, the grade is more important when it comes to admission. The AP score is just whether or not we give you college credit for that course.
Okay, great. Now we've got a question. I'm retaking the ACT and SAT. Do you need to pass one of them or both?
We take either. So if you have a admissible score on either test, we will take whatever is the highest. So let's say that you just did really well on the SAT versus the ACT, we'll take that score. If vice versa, we'll take the other score. We'll just take whatever is the highest.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you so much. And I heard that one of the programs that you have is I don't have a picture here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Dance and theater. And I'm like, did you participate in the theater? Theater. As I like to be an actor, like acting.
So USF Tampa has most of our traditional art programs. So that would be where theater and things like that would be located. We do have like theater, traditional theater and things like that, but we do not, however, have, and those do require auditions, but we do not have like film. We don't have traditional film. So, but we do have theater. So if you're interested in acting and stuff like that, we do have that kind of program, but we don't have like a traditional film program. I think FSU and UF both have those programs, but USF does not.
Awesome, thanks. Amina was asking, is Oasis and the application portal the same thing?
So Oasis is your student account essentially. So once you apply, your information is going to, Oasis is basically what houses all your student information. The application portal takes the information and puts it into Oasis. That's the best way to know how to describe it. So all your student information is going to be housed in there.
Awesome. I've got another question. I finished my junior year in New York City. Transfer to Florida my senior year. Is this going to affect my application?
It shouldn't, because all that information should be on your high school transcript from your current institution. So that information should have been transferred from New York to your current institution, and then when you submit your transcript to us, all that information should come over. That is my understanding.
Okay, great. Another question. Our son would like to major in computer science. Can he get his first 2 years of general education at the St. Pete campus and then transfer to the Tampa campus for computer science classes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All your general education classes. When I was speaking about majors specifically, it more so is going to be related to your second 2 years, which is where your major classes are already. You can basically take any of your general education classes at any of the campuses, as well as at SPC if you'd like to. So your gen ed you should be able to take your gen eds at any of the campuses.
Okay. Lisa's asking regarding the ROTC partnership. Does that mean I would be enrolled at USF and not SPC? Are you familiar with that, Kason?
No, I believe that you could be enrolled at SPC and still participate in ROTC at USF. But I would have to check with the ROTC department. I know that USF St. Pete only has, I believe, Army and all the other branches are housed on the Tampa campus. So if you're interested in the other branches other than the Army, you'd have to reach out to those branches on the Tampa campus. And I'm not sure exactly how we're going to kind of make those work with consolidation, like the Navy and Marine, stuff like that, but you can reach out to them and they should be able to let you know.
Awesome. Our next question is, do freshmen have to live on campus?
No, there's no requirement for freshmen to live on campus at USF. You can also have a car. There's nothing restricting you from having your own vehicle. In St. Pete, you really didn't need one, but you can. It's my understanding that I don't think any of the state universities can require you, the public institutions can require you to live on campus. They can suggest it, but I don't believe they can require you. The private institutions are a different story.
Excuse me?
All right. Lots of great questions. Do dual enrollment classes change the admission decision at USF?
The only way that they can do that is if you do poorly in them. So let's say that you're taking a dual enrollment class and so in order to be admissible to USF, you have to be in what's called good academic standing at the last institution you attended, the post-secondary institution you attended. So you need to have above a 2.0. So let's say that you took some dual enrollment classes and you don't have above a 2.0, that could affect your admissibility. That's the only way that happens, is if you essentially fail those dual enrollment classes.
Got it. Okay, for time's sake, because I know Mr. Scott has been waiting, if you'll hang on, Jose, I see you have a question. If you can just hang on till the end, we'll keep addressing questions, but we're going to move on. We want to respect everybody's time, and Mr. Scott has some great information about financial aid. So thank you so much, Kason. I appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for all these great questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Will Scott from St. Petersburg College.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And good evening to everybody. And thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate all the great questions you've had. Hopefully you'll have lots more great questions for us on the financial aid side of the house. Because obviously this is the fun part. So far you've been told all the great things about St. Pete College and USF. Now we try to figure out the best ways on paying for those different costs, whichever college it is you're planning on attending. So a few different things I want to cover this evening. First thing is simply applying for financial aid. Second thing is I'll talk about the verification process. Then we're going to talk about the different types of financial aid: grants, scholarships, federal work study, and federal student loans. So the first form, or the first thing we're going to talk about, is the FAFSA. This is the main application that you need to complete in order to determine exactly what you're eligible for. Now, you guys are all seniors, so chances are most of you are looking at starting in the fall of next year. If you're looking at starting in the fall of next year, the FAFSA you're going to need to do is going to be the 22-23 FAFSA, which actually is going to be available as of October the 1st of this year. I know it's a long time before the school year begins, but you definitely want to do it as early as humanly possible. The reason you want to do it as early as possible is two reasons. One, in case you get chosen for a process called verification that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later, which can then extend the process of applying for financial aid. But the most important reason why you want to apply as early as possible is there's a number of different grants you may potentially be eligible for. Now, the main grant that students may be eligible for is the Pell Grant. In the history of the Pell Grant, it's been fully funded. However, all of the other grants, there's not nearly enough money to cover all of the eligible students. So the only way that pretty much all institutions across the United States do is they simply determine who are the eligible students, and then they simply go, who filled out the FAFSA for October the 1st, October the 2nd, and just keep moving forward until they've used all of that funding. So bottom line, get the FAFSA done on October the 1st. Put it on your calendars, wake up on the morning of October the 1st, and get that FAFSA filled out for the 22-23 year. Now that FAFSA will be based on you and your parents' income information from 2020. To digress briefly, I've heard some of you talking about taking classes in the summer. Now, if you are planning on taking classes in the summer, that's still going to be in the 21-22 academic year. So if you're taking classes in the summer, you want to do both FAFSAs. The 21-22 FAFSA is available right now, has been available since October the 1st of last year. But so definitely jump on getting that one done right away. That will be based on what you and your parents made in 2019. But as I say, the main one that most of you are probably going to want to be filling out, the 22-23 FAFSA, not going to be available until October the 1st, but that's only about a week away. Now, the next thing I want to say is the form itself, the FAFSA application. I mean, FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. There's only one website that you'd want to go to complete this application, and that's what we have listed on this slide, and that's FAFSA.gov. There are several other websites where you can go to complete the application, where they will charge you almost $100 to fill out this application. Please, please, please do not fall into the trap of going to any of these other websites to complete this application. Only place to do it is on FAFSA.gov. I mean, in its very title, it's called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. You should not be paying to fill out this application. Now, some students use these other services, these other websites, because they feel they need a little bit of extra help to complete the FAFSA. I'm going to tell you the form is not that complicated. However, if you do need help, come and visit one of our campuses. We have financial aid staff at all of our St. Pete College campuses, whether it's up at Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, Seminole, down at the Gibbs campus. I mean, all over the county, we have staff that can assist you to complete the FAFSA. In addition to coming to campuses to help, we will be going to, I think, 17 different high schools over the next few months, where we will be offering FAFSA events. In addition to that, we will be doing some virtual FAFSA events online. So definitely keep your eyes on our website for when we're going to be coming to your high school or when we're doing those virtual events if you need help completing the FAFSA, because we're absolutely there to help you with that. Do not go to those sites where you have to pay to do these free applications to get some money. Now, the great thing about the FAFSA, especially if you come into SPC, is it's the only application you need to do, and it will determine your eligibility for federal, state, and institutional aid. So one application, it takes about 30 minutes to fill it out, and it's going to figure out exactly what you're eligible for, whether that be grants, loans, or the federal work-study program. Scholarships are a little bit different, and I'm going to touch briefly on scholarships, but Sandy's mainly going to be jumping in on telling you more about scholarships this evening. Now, the first thing you need to do before you actually start to apply for the FAFSA is you have to create a username and password. That username and password is called an FSA ID. Now, you will be considered a dependent student. Therefore, you're going to probably need your parents' information. You're going to need an FSA ID, and also your parents are going to need to create an FSA ID as well. Basically, when you're filling out the FAFSA, there's about 10 questions that determine whether you are considered a dependent or an independent student. Now, those questions are basically, are you 24 years old? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you financially take care of somebody other than yourself? Are both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care after the age of 13? Did the courts take you away from your parents? Are you an emancipated minor? Are you working on a master's degree? Are you a veteran of the armed forces? Are you currently in the armed forces? Or are you homeless? Those are the questions that show up on the FAFSA. Now, if you're not able to answer yes to any of those questions, if you're answering no to all of those questions, then you will be considered a dependent student and will need to put parental information on the FAFSA. Common questions we get are, I don't live at home, my parents aren't helping me with my education, my parents live in another state, my parents live in another country, can I become an independent student? Unfortunately, none of those reasons I just said are grounds to make you an independent student. Yeah, just because you live on your own, your parents aren't financially helping you, you're paying your own bills. If you're not able to answer yes to those 10 questions I mentioned earlier, then you would still be considered a dependent student. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and I'll address that a little bit later. The other big thing I'm always going to recommend to students when you are completing the FAFSA form, because the most complicated aspect of it is the tax side of things. What number do you take from what line on the tax return? What are you putting on the FAFSA itself? So when it comes to that, I highly recommend that you use a tool in the FAFSA that's called the IRS retrieval tool. If you use this tool, it's going to throw pretty much all the numbers you need in the right spots. Not only is it going to do that for you, but also if you get chosen for a process called verification, which again, I'm going to talk to you about in a few minutes, it's going to limit the amount of documentation that you need to provide the institution you're attending. So it just makes your life so much simpler. So let me move right along. When you are applying for financial aid, there's a few different things that you're going to need. So I always tell people this is kind of a useful checklist of items to get together before you start filling out the FAFSA. The first thing is, in order to be eligible to complete a FAFSA, you do need a social security number. Now, as a dependent student, and you will be putting parents' information on there, your parents do not need to have a social security number. If your parents don't have a social security number, then when you are including their information, you would simply put all zeros for parents. The only issue that you will have, it just takes a little bit longer to process the FAFSA, because your parents won't be able to create that FSA ID, that username and password I mentioned before. So they won't be able to sign your FAFSA electronically. When you get to the last page of the FAFSA, if your parents do not have a social security number, you'll just have to print off the signature page. Your parents wet sign that document, and you just mail it into an address in Kentucky, and it usually processes within 2 weeks rather than within 3 days. So it slows down the process a little bit. But again, another reason why it's worth completing the FAFSA on October the 1st. It's almost 10 months before it's really needed. So it's getting it knocked out of the way. Main types of other documentation you need, you're going to need tax returns for you and parents if they filed, potentially W-2s, and then any other untaxed income information that you may have. Now, the other side of the equation that is the most commonly mistaken questions on the FAFSA are the asset information. And there's so many times when students and parents, primarily parents, incorrectly answer these asset questions, and it negatively impacts the score. The score at the end of the FAFSA is called an EFC, an expected family contribution. And it's that score that determines what you're going to be eligible for as far as grants. And in many cases, a lot of scholarships, certainly need-based scholarships. So those three asset questions are checking and saving account balances, investments, and the net worth of a business. So the first asset question is usually not mistaken. Whatever you've got in the bank is whatever you've got in the bank. But the second two, so investments, a lot of people list what they have in retirement accounts. So anything in a retirement account does not need to be included in the net worth of you or your parents' investments. And when I'm talking retirement accounts, I'm talking about if your parents have a 401k, a 403b, or an IRA. Those dollar amounts they have in those funds do not need to be included in the FAFSA. Also, the value of your parents' primary residence, the house that you live in, that doesn't need to be included on the FAFSA under investments. The type of things you do need to include in investments, or if your parents have something like a portfolio of stocks and bonds, if they have CDs or money market accounts, or if they have like rental properties or vacation properties. So for a lot of people, they don't have any of those things. Most people may own their own house if they're fortunate, and they may have retirement accounts, but not so many people have a portfolio of stocks and bonds or rental properties or vacation properties. So whenever I see anything listed on investments, I always check with the students and parents to go, what was that you're including there? Because I don't want them to be overinflating that EFC and reducing the amount of Pell they're going to be eligible for. Likewise, a lot of students make mistakes, so parents make mistakes on the last question, which is the net worth of a business. The only time you need to include the net worth of a business is if you own more than 50% of the business and you employ more than 100 people. So a lot of people may have small businesses, possibly with 10 employees, may be worth a lot of money, but if it doesn't hire more than 100 employees, you do not need to be including any dollar amount for the net worth of what that business may be worth. Also, you don't need to go through that whole calculation of what the business may be worth. Other thing to mention as far as who to include by way of parents on the FAFSA. So your parents would be either your biological parents or your adopted parents. Now, say you live with grandma, you live with auntie or uncle, you don't ever include them as your parents unless they have legally adopted you. That's a common mistake. The other common mistake we see when it comes to parents is the marital status question of parents. So the question asks, what is the marital status of your parents? You naturally think, well, my parents, my biological parents are divorced, and therefore you list divorced, and then possibly you put mum or you put dad, whoever you put on there. But what it's asking is the parent you currently live with, say you live with mum, what is mum's marital status now? So if mum has remarried, even though she may be divorced from your biological father, if mum has remarried, then mum is married, and then you're going to be listing not only mum's information, but also whoever your stepfather is. So again, that's one of the problems or one of the areas where people trip up when they're filling out the FAFSA. It's on parental marital status. Whichever parent, if your parents are divorced, whichever parent you're deciding to use, which is the one you're typically living with most recently, whichever parent that is, what is their current marital status? So hopefully I haven't just confused you more with me going into detail there. Now, once you do submit the FAFSA, If you submit it electronically and both your parents are able to sign it electronically using an FSA ID, typically the schools you listed on the FAFSA would receive that FAFSA, or will receive what's called an ISA, within 3 days. Once the schools receive that, you may be chosen for a process called verification. Now, I always tell students, don't freak out if you get chosen for verification, because it's not uncommon. About a third of all FAFSA applications are chosen for this process called verification. Now, for the current educational year, we have had a lot of leniency with the verification process, and we have been able to waive a lot of items. But that's for the current 21-22 year. For the 22-23 year, unfortunately, we have heard that the Department of Education are not going to be giving us so many leniencies. So if you get chosen for verification, chances are the institution you're attending are going to need you to provide the documentation they need. Now, as I say, don't freak out if you get chosen for verification. It's not an IRS audit, which is what some people seem to think it is. Many people make mistakes when they're filling out the FAFSA. There's a lot of questions. If you make mistakes, you get chosen for verification. We ask for documentation from you, things like your tax returns, W-2s, and we simply correct the mistakes you made. No one's getting sent to jail. No one's getting fined. We're simply fixing the mistakes and we're moving on. So don't be too concerned if you get chosen. It's very common to get chosen, and then we will simply fix the issues, correct the things, and then move on. Now, again, this goes back to why I'd suggested earlier when you are completing the FAFSA that it's so important to use that IRS retrieval tool, because if you use that tool, it's going to limit the amount of documentation we need to request from you, because we know a lot of the information came straight from the IRS. Grants, I've already spoken largely about grants. As far as, by completing the FAFSA, it's going to determine your eligibility for, certainly at SBC, the FAFSA is the only form you need to complete, and that will determine your eligibility for Pell Grant, SEOG grant, state grant, student incentive grant, all sorts of different grants. And I mentioned the importance of making sure you do the FAFSA as early as possible to increase the amount of grants you may be eligible for. But one topic I always want to talk about when I'm talking about the grant slide is what's called a professional judgment. So the FAFSA form that you complete is based on, if you're doing the 21-22 FAFSA, it's based on 2019 income information. If you do the 22-23 FAFSA, which comes out on October the 1st, that's going to be based on your 2020 income information. Well, that information is already starting to become pretty historic data, especially in the world that we're currently living in, this COVID zombie apocalyptic world, because a lot of people are not making as much money now as they possibly were in the past, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. So when you do fill out the FAFSA, you have to do it based on the year that the FAFSA is asking you to do. However, after you've submitted that FAFSA, if that's no longer a true representation of your current financial situation, then definitely reach out to the institution you're planning on attending and talk to them about a possible change in circumstance, because that could make a huge difference to your eligibility. And that's called a professional judgment. Now, another professional judgment that's potentially available is called a dependency override. A dependency override is, when I was talking earlier about students are typically going to be considered a dependent student unless they can answer yes to those, are you 24, are you married, those questions. However, there are circumstances where some students, even though they're not able to answer yes to any of those questions, they have a unique situation, whether it's parental abandonment, whether it's abuse by parents, whether parents are incarcerated, or maybe parents are addicted to something. That's then when you want to reach out to the college you're looking at attending and talk to them about a possible dependency override, because even though the FAFSA deems you dependent, it would be impossible for you, or it would be dangerous for you to try to reach out to parents to get that information. And then certainly the financial aid department or the school you're planning on attending can definitely discuss a dependency override with you. Scholarships, I'm just going to touch on very briefly, so I don't want to be standing on Sandy's feet. But I do want to talk briefly about some SBC scholarships that are definitely worth checking out. I mean, certainly follow this link, go to our website. On our website, your best bang for your buck when it comes to scholarships for attending SBC are our SBC Foundation scholarships and our SBC institutional scholarships. Now, our two main institutional scholarships I'd recommend whilst you're still in high school would be the Johnny Ruth Clark Scholarship and our Presidential Scholarship. And then depending on when you are looking at starting, if you're looking at SBC, definitely keep your eyes out for the SPC Foundation Scholarship, because again, best bang for your buck. Only SPC students can apply. One application applies for a multitude of different scholarships. So definitely check those two things out, but I don't want to talk too much on scholarships right now. The next type of financial aid that's available is the Federal Work-Study Program. I'm a huge fan of the Federal Work-Study Program for a number of different reasons. But bottom line, this is something that you get a paycheck for. It's not something that whatever you earn goes directly to the cost of your education. It's just like a regular job. The only difference about it is, one, you do have to show need. So you have to complete the FAFSA, and based on that EFC, that score on your FAFSA, that has to show that you have need to work in the Federal Work-Study Program. But the great thing about the Federal Work-Study Program is, one, the jobs are typically on campus. So you're not having to find your way between classes, driving on US Highway 19 to go and find your job or go to your job. Literally, you can have a class on campus in the morning, walk across campus to do your job, and then have another class in the evening without ever having left campus. That's one of the positives about the Federal Work-Study Program. Another positive is all of the supervisors know that you're primarily a student. So they understand when midterms are, they know when finals are, they know that each semester your schedule is going to need to change to tie in with your class schedule. You know, if you're working for a restaurant or a supermarket, they don't care that you're primarily a student, and they're going to be very annoyed when you're calling in saying, I've got a final, I can't come into work today. So a few different positives about the Federal Work-Study Program. So the things I've spoken about so far, definitely the main types of financial aid that I suggest students work on: grants, scholarships, and Federal Work-Study. The last resort that I suggest students look at are federal student loans. I understand sometimes it's something students need, but certainly to come to SPC, I recommend you try to avoid them. If it is USF you're attending and you're going to be living on campus, then yes, the grants and scholarships alone may not be enough, and then you may need the loans to help supplement to cover the room and board and those types of costs. But the bottom line is, when it comes to federal student loans, just be careful how much you borrow. You know, limit your borrowing. It's very easy to borrow the money, and it's very easy, therefore, to end up with a lot of loans at the end of the day. But it's a lot harder to pay that money back. So I'm just really trying to encourage you to avoid the federal student loans or limit what you borrow. There are basically three different types for federal student loans. There's the subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. Subsidized loans are the types of loans the government pays the interest for whilst you're going to school. The unsubsidized loans are the type of loans that will be accruing interest as you're attending school. And the Parent Plus loans, these are loans that your parents can take out in your name or in their name to help cover your education costs. Always bear in mind, all of these loans, you do not need to pay them back whilst you're attending school. As long as you're attending school, at least part-time, they can be put into an in-school deferment status. However, once you do stop attending school, at least part-time, that's when these loans are going to go into repayment. So that isn't just when you graduate. Some students have come into my office and said, well, I didn't graduate, so I don't have to pay my loans back. Unfortunately, as soon as you drop below half-time, that's when the loans go into repayment. And if you're not careful, depending on how much you borrow, this is how old you can end up being by the time you finally end up paying off on those loans. So does anybody have any questions for us on the finance side?
We sure do.
I figured there may be a couple, as I just covered a lot of information.
I know that this evening is full of information. Our first question is, do we report a 529 on the FAFSA?
Excellent question. Unfortunately, yes, 529 plans are included as an investment on the FAFSA, yes.
Okay, next question is, what if the parents are currently in the process of divorcing?
So the FAFSA question says, are you married, single, separated, or divorced? So I'm assuming if parents are currently going through a divorce, possibly they're currently separated. So if you are currently separated, then that's the status that you'd list, and therefore you're probably only listing the one parent that you're currently living with, is my guess. That's usually the case when somebody's going through divorce. They're usually separated.
Okay, well, and the next question is a little similar. Can I use my father? I live with both parents half and half. So they go back and forth, sometimes with the mother, sometimes with the father.
Yeah, so on the FAFSA, it does say you should be using the parent that you live with the most. And if you're living evenly with both, then which one pays most of your bills? And if it's still a tie when it comes to who's paying for most of my support, then you could choose whichever one you wanted, yes.
Okay, great. Next question, does it count against a student if they own their own car?
No, cars does not get included anywhere on the FAFSA as an asset, no.
Great. What are the requirements for Pell Grants?
Well, basically, it all comes down to the FAFSA, the questions on the FAFSA. I mean, the FAFSA itself is over 80 questions long, but the main ones that determine that score, that EFC, that therefore determines what you're eligible for as far as Pell, is simply your income, your assets, and the household size. Those are the main factors that tie into it. So the more you make, the more you have in those three asset categories as far as, cash, investments, and business net worth, and so the larger those are, is going to be a worse EFC, a higher EFC, less Pell, and the fewer people in the house is going to be a higher EFC and therefore less Pell. The more people in the house gives you a lower EFC. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay,
the next question, and you may need to clarify this, Daniel. He just asked, how about Florida prepaid? I'm not sure if he's asking how Florida prepaid works or if you report Florida prepaid on the FAFSA.
So Florida prepaid is a 529 plan. So Florida prepaid would be included on the FAFSA just like any other 529 plan. If you're asking, does it need to be included as an asset? Yes, it does. If that's what you're asking.
Okay, did that answer your question, Daniel? Yes, it did. Okay. Okay, there's a question. What is the SAT requirement now for Bright Futures? I think I'm going to go into that a little bit, unless you know it off the top of your head.
I do not know that off the top of my head, no.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Scott?
Well, but I'm actually what if you attend another school, like another school, like USF, like University of South Florida? It's not actually a question; it's more like a statement. I even type in the question.
Well, the information that Mr. Scott just gave us really applies to all schools, with the exception of maybe the SPC scholarships. The FAFSA is something that you would apply for no matter what school you're going to attend.
Like the FAFSA, do parents do we have to sign up for the parents?
Yes.
Yeah. If you're considered a dependent student, then yes, not only would you need a username password, that FSA ID, your parents would also need an FSA ID, and then it would be looking at your income information, your demographic information, and then your parents' information. Yes.
Okay, so when is all of this due? Like on October 1st?
That's when I tell people to do it. People always ask me that question. When's the deadline to do the FAFSA? I never tell people the deadline. I always tell them the first day you can possibly do it is the day you should do it. And if you're looking at starting college in the fall next year, then the first day that you can do the 22-23 FAFSA is October the 1st. And that's when I recommend you do it. I mean, schools all have different deadlines. I know when we were looking at the USF presentation, they have priority deadlines for financial aid. I think it's January the 1st is their priority deadline. But every institution will have different priority deadlines. But best bet is just do it the earliest day possible, and it's going to increase your chance of getting those additional grants.
And one more thing before I go and mute myself, it's just I'm worried about paying for the form and everything.
Paying for the form, the FAFSA form? The FAFSA form you don't have to pay for, if that's what you mean by the form.
When do I start doing it? Because it's planned outrage of EPCA on September 6th, 26th. I saw an announcement. 20, 22, 23rd episode is almost here. It'll be sent. It will be.
I'm not sure if I got your question, but October the 1st is when you can do the FAFSA form.
I'll do it in October 2nd if I have time. So
Okay, no problem.
All right, we've got one more question for you, Mr. Scott, and it's just when do you apply for scholarships for SPC?
Okay, so as far as the Johnny Ruth Clark Scholarship, you wouldn't need to do anything. You would receive a letter if you're eligible for the Johnny Ruth Clark. Regarding the Presidential Scholarship, the deadline to apply for that is, I think it is in January of next year. So definitely keep your eyes open for when it is available to apply for. But the deadline for that one, I believe, is the end of January, and then students get notified in March. As far as SPC Foundation Scholarship, that opens up each semester a long time before each semester begins. For instance, the SPC Foundation Scholarship for the spring semester, that doesn't start until January. The deadline for that is today. So what is it now? It's now the middle of September. So it's 3-4 months before the semester begins. So if you're looking at starting fall next year, chances are the SPC Foundation Scholarship window is going to be open up early during the summer semester. So I always tell people, just keep your eyes on our website for when those windows open, because they usually open and only open for about a month, but it's usually 3 months before the semester begins. And if you're looking at taking summer classes and you're looking to get SPC Foundation Scholarship for summer next year, then that window is going to probably be open January, February time next year. But it's definitely keep your eye on our website for when those pop up, those dates.
all right. My parents need to know about the FA, FSA things. Sorry to interrupt you. My parents need to know about this. My dad's here. Hey, Dad. What?
No problem.
Okay, Jose, if you can hang on, we'll address your question towards the end because that was a perfect segue to start talking about scholarships. So I'm going to thank Mr. Scott again for his presentation and continue to put questions in the chat. And I am going to move on to scholarships. And I'm just going to pick up from where Mr. Scott left off, that scholarships quite often have a very early deadline, as he said. So it's really important to keep an eye on those deadlines and apply as early as possible. So I am actually going to share my screen. And again, my name is Sandy DiCarlo, and I am going to talk a little bit about scholarships. And again, we are talking about any scholarships to any schools. So those of you that are seniors in high school, a lot of you may not be aware of how to find scholarships. So we're going to go through that today. So the first thing I wanted to share was, where do you start? So the best place I would start is locally. Really start to look for scholarships that are applying for Pinellas County students, or maybe even just your high school. The smaller group that is, the smaller the group is that's eligible to apply for scholarships, the better chances you have of getting those scholarships. So one of my favorite websites is actually the one that is, and I'm going to show it to you, produced by Pinellas County School Board. They have an excellent website, and it's going to have links to almost all of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to just change my screen here, and I'm going to pull it up. So the Pinellas County Schools updates this website on a monthly basis. And basically I get to it by just Googling Pinellas County School scholarships, but the exact address is up here, pcsb.org/financial aid. So you can see on here, the very first link opens up to a list of scholarships. So they have already done the homework. They have gone through and vetted these scholarships, and they list them very easily by grade level. So you can go through. So this first one, Be Bold Scholarship, it's a $25,000 scholarship. It is open to the 12th grade students, and it gives you the link to go to the scholarship and also the deadline. So this is actually has a deadline of the 30th So you've got 8 days to apply for that one, but it was just posted. This list was updated September 17th, so it's a nice fresh list. As we go down, you'll see more opportunities. One thing that surprises a lot of people are some of these scholarships are available from 9th grade up. So if you have siblings or you have friends that aren't quite seniors yet, please share this with them. They can be applying for scholarships even before that they're seniors. So always look through. This is a great site. I would suggest marking your calendar to check this on a monthly basis and see what's available. I also want to point out that if you see, there's a lot of 12 plus in the grade level. So this is a great site, even when you're attending college, to come back and check on a monthly basis, because 12 plus means you can continue to apply for them when you're in college. And looking for scholarships is going to be a continual job that you're going to keep doing throughout your career at college. It is not just for you to get in the door. You're going to keep getting those tuition bills, so you want to keep finding ways to be able to pay the tuition. So that is probably my favorite site to go to. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to show you some other things on that too. Hold on. All right, so definitely the scholarship list is my #1 go-to. But as we go down on the website, you'll see there's actually also a scholarship list for undocumented students. So if any of you are an undocumented student or you know of undocumented students, there's another opportunity list for that. There are scholarship tools, search tools, information from scholarship and financial aid presentations. There are some recorded views there. We're going to talk a little bit about Bright Futures, and there's a link directly to Bright Futures there, as well as the requirements. We had a question earlier about that. The state of Florida scholarship programs, FAFSA that Mr. Scott just covered. So this is really a great site filled with resources and links to additional resources. So I'm going to use that. Okay, so we will go on. So that was where I start. The Pinellas Education Foundation. Will mentioned the St. Petersburg College Foundation scholarships. A foundation is basically a collective of donations, whether it's philanthropic donations, maybe it's local businesses that are offering sponsorship. So every year, seniors can apply for this collection of Pinellas Education Foundation scholarships. The 2 really great advantages are that it is only for seniors and it is only for Pinellas County students. So that really limits the pool to a smaller amount of students. It is 1 application and there are over 300 scholarships that it can apply for. Now this application is going to take a little while to fill out because it's going to ask you a lot of just personal questions and specifics about maybe organizations you've been involved in, classes that you've taken, things like that, because it's going to funnel all that information to the individual scholarships to see what's a good match for you. So take the time, fill it out completely. I believe there's a small essay that you have to fill out as well, but it is more than worth your time because there are, as I said, close to 300 scholarships that you can apply for. And you can go on the Pinellas Education Foundation website and look at all those scholarships as well. So again, pinellas.education.org, and the link to that site is also on the Pinellas County Schools website. Next thing, look for the state of Florida. All right, this state of Florida website is the first step that you would go to in order to apply for Bright Futures, but a lot of people don't realize that there are other state of Florida scholarships and opportunities there as well. So you definitely want to go on the state of Florida financial aid website and register for any grants or scholarships that are specifically there for Pinellas County, I'm sorry, for Florida residents. And okay, so Bright Futures, I will get a little bit into Bright Futures. Bright Futures, if you're not familiar with it, is a Florida-sponsored scholarship program. It is only for students in the state of Florida. The application opens October 1st, so we keep hearing this end of September, beginning of October, and then we really kick into the season for financial opportunities for college. You have to apply for Bright Futures. I have had a lot of students think it's an automatic selection. It is not. You have to complete the application, and there are actually 4 different Bright Futures scholarships. There's the Florida Academic Scholars, which will give you 100% tuition. Florida Medallion Scholars, which covers 75% of college tuition. And then there are 2 Gold Seal scholarships. The Gold Seal scholarship requires that you've completed a career and technical education program. So it may have been a series of culinary arts classes or a series of digital design classes, something that falls under the career and technical education with Pinellas County Schools. So you have to complete the required coursework, and it maps out how many maths, how many Englishes, how many sciences have to be completed. It includes 2 years of the same foreign language, so it maps it out what you've had to complete. You have to have the minimum grade point average that's required for each scholarship, and it differs with each one of those scholarships. You also have to achieve the minimum score on the ACT or the SAT. And then you have to complete the number of service hours, community service hours. And if those service hours have to be approved by your school guidance counselor. So I think 2 of the most common questions that I get are, or 2 surprises that I hear a lot is that you had to apply for Bright Futures. I've had a lot of students who are just waiting for it to be awarded. And then secondly is that my guidance counselor had to approve my service hours. There are certain categories that your service hours have to fall under. So before you start volunteering and going out, you definitely want to get those service hours approved. We will take a quick glance. I don't think 2 hours is enough to go over all of the Bright Futures, but I do just want to show you briefly. We'll go back to that Pinellas County School website. And then if I click on the Bright Futures website, it's going to come up with the Florida State Scholarship and Grants Program. And then over to the right, you can click on Bright Futures Scholarship. I highly, highly recommend that you look at the Bright Futures Handbook, which comes under here. So if I click on Requirements for Scholarships, it's going to pull up this PDF version of the handbook. Changes can be made throughout the year. I looked on it today and I realized that last year's recipients, they had an extension of their application through the end of August. And if they weren't checking the website, they probably would not have any idea of that. Typically, the deadline was June, but because of the challenges involved in testing, SAT testing, and completing community service due to COVID, they actually expanded it through August. So again, I think Kaysen mentioned earlier that websites always have the most current information. It's good to keep checking websites. Now, in the Bright Futures Handbook, and again, we don't have time to go through it all, but I will show you some of the examples. So hopefully you can see this. So the FAS stands for the Florida Academic Scholarship, and you can see the courses required are the same for the Florida Medallion. The difference comes in the GPA. The Florida Academic Scholarship requires a 3.5, and then Florida Medallion is a 3.0. It lists your test scores, and the amount of community service hours. And then if you scroll through, it'll do the same for the gold seal. Now, there are a number of alternative requirements. If you don't have SAT and ACT scores, perhaps you're a National Merit Scholarship or an ACE student. Again, there is a lot of information here. I just recommend that you download the handbook and read through it so you're very familiar with what your student may qualify for. All right, we'll go back to the presentation. So Bright Futures is always very important to students. Can't recommend the handbook enough. And then if you have questions, you can bring them either to us as path counselors or to your school guidance counselor. Research, again, with local scholarships, ask friends, ask family, ask neighbors, ask your parents' employer, maybe your church or your temple, maybe you're involved in an organization or your parents are part of maybe the Rotary Club or something. Start asking the people you know if they're familiar with any scholarship opportunities. You will be surprised how many that you may have a connection for. So once you're done with the local opportunities, you want to expand your search. College Board is the company that oversees the SAT testing, and they just about 2 years ago started offering these College Board opportunity scholarships. This is a great way to not only apply for scholarships, but to go through the college planning process. They award each step, whether it's researching schools, taking the SATs, each one of those steps will qualify you to put your name in towards a scholarship. If you complete all 7 steps of the college going process, then you can enter for a $40,000 scholarship. And last year, 25 students received the $40,000 scholarship just by applying for the opportunity scholarships and recording that they were taking the steps to plan for college anyway. So I highly recommend looking at the College Board opportunity scholarships. Then there's an opportunity and it's called Raise Me. This is pretty unique because you actually create your own scholarship based on all the activities that you've been involved in. Now, not every single school is connected with Raise Me, but you can go in there, sign up to build a portfolio, and then you can see which schools are offering scholarships based on all those activities. So maybe it's, $100 for getting an A on your science classes. Maybe you get additional funding based on being part of student government. But it's a great way to individually create this scholarship and then maybe research schools based on how much they're offering with that. So you can assess schools that offer the micro scholarships and assess what you might be eligible for. And again, that's www.raiseme. Now, one thing I just want you to do is also stay organized, okay? As you're looking for scholarships, and even just that first list that I shared with you, there's a lot of scholarships on there. You definitely want to determine what email you're going to use for your scholarships and continue to use that exact email. You want to check it on a regular basis. Email is probably the most common form of communication, whether you're communicating with a college or with a scholarship opportunity. And I would hate for you to miss an admission offer or a scholarship offer just because you didn't check your email. All right, a lot of scholarships are first come, first serve. If you don't accept it, they're going to give it to somebody else. So set up a regular schedule, whether it's once a week or once a month, to review and look for scholarships. Keep an organized list and keep a folder. And in those folders, record what are the deadlines for the scholarships? What references did I use? What essays did I send? And which ones have I completed and I'm waiting for an answer for? So if you keep all this information, it's going to be easy to monitor it. And as I said, not just now when you're planning to go to the school, but as you continue to go to school because you want to keep this search up. All right, so let's say congratulations, you were awarded a scholarship, What do I need to do now? Well, make sure if you need to accept the scholarship that you do accept it. You want to confirm all the details, look through the information. Do they have your correct school? Do they have the correct spelling of your name, your correct address? Little things like that could definitely be a barrier in getting that funding. You want to read the fine print. Is it a one-time scholarship? Is it a renewal scholarship? A lot of scholarships will be renewed each semester if you meet the criteria. So you really need to know what that criteria is going to be. Is it a GPA? Maybe it's a number of classes. Sometimes you have to be full-time. You don't want to miss out on the scholarship just because you took 3 classes instead of 4 classes. So definitely read the conditions of the scholarship. Make note of the award. Go back to that scholarship list and mark, I was awarded this one. That way you can keep tracking it and see if it continues. Do not forget to say thank you. Scholarship awardees definitely like to get that thank you note. Sometimes that can open opportunities for more scholarships. So don't forget to say thank you. And as I said before, never stop looking. You cannot get too many scholarships. Majority of scholarships are going to be funneled directly to the school first, but if all your expenses are paid, then the additional funding will come back to you. So never stop looking for scholarships. Okay, we went through that really quick. I want to be just cognizant of everybody's time. So I am going to stop presenting and see if there's any questions for me.
Excuse me?
Sandy, we had 2 questions so far. One I think you've already answered, which is what is the best website to apply for scholarships?
Okay, there, you know, it depends on you. I don't think that there's one scholarship, but I would definitely start with that Pinellas County School website. And then I would look at some of the others that I shared. And then once you've decided on an institution and you've been accepted, then you start going into the institution's website and see what you qualify for as well.
And then the next question that we have is specific to USF. It says, regarding USF and Lakewood's guaranteed admissions pathway, can we send in the application before December 1st if the SAT or the ACT final results are not in yet?
Yes, you can. You can send in the application before then and then add the test scores as soon as they come in. And that the same goes for if you're taking the test more than once. Perhaps you've already taken the test. I know a lot of students are taking it October 13th, and maybe you're going to plan on taking it again. Go ahead and send in that October 13th, and then if you retest, you can send it in again.
Okay. There's another question. Do we have any detailed information about SPC's presidential scholarship? That's from Joven.
Joven, can you answer that one?
I honestly was asking because I'm curious. I get that question asked all the time. So if you do have information, I would love for you to share. We can get together at any time after this. Yeah.
Okay, I know it is on the website, and it is, GPAs are pulled from Pinellas County Schools, and I believe it is after the first half of your senior year. So SPC is going to look at those GPAs and automatically award the presidential scholarship to students that fit the criteria. However, that is definitely one of the first come, first serve scholarships. So if you're not sure if you're going to SPC and you don't reply to that offer for presidential scholarship, by the time you decide, it may already be given to someone else. So my advice is if you are offered the scholarship, say yes. And then if by chance you do not go there, then they can award it to someone else.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
By the way,
we have one more question in the chat. Can I apply for Bright Futures even if I do not have the? You can apply for Bright Futures anytime after October 1st. You will not be awarded Bright Futures unless you have met all those criteria. So you have up until, I believe it's mid-June to complete everything on the list for Bright Future. So you can go ahead and apply, and that's great. That opens up your application, and then keep adding to it as your senior year goes through.
Excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I don't, like, I already, not to be confused with another college, but I already received, like, a resume, like, an application letter from, like, the University of Tampa, and it told me that I'm, like, a potential student for this. And I need to remind my parents about the FSA form. Like, I'm gonna record the whole thing, and I'll show my parents, because it's really important. Like, do you have to, when you click on the form, what do you have to do when you clicked on the form?
You know what, Jose? I'm going to let Miss Walker close us out, and if you want to stay on, we can address that with you, because it gets a little complicated with that.
Because I really need to know, because I wasn't actually paying attention, because I was, like, too busy doing homework, and yeah.
All right, if you can stay on the line, Jose, we'll talk to you as soon as we're through. All right, Danica, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Again, to be respectful of all of your time, I'm going to try to make this pretty quick. There's not a lot of information that's left over. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the PATH program. So, as I mentioned before, the purpose of PATH is to increase the number of Pinellas County students who are going into post-secondary education. So regardless if that's a certificate, if that's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, we just want to make sure that we are helping economic mobility, filling skill gaps, and meeting the workforce needs for the overall economic health of Pinellas County. So there are a few ways that we do this. One example is this workshop that we put on today. But overall, we just want to make sure that you recognize that we are a resource to you. So we provide college access information regardless of attending college. So if you are considering going to UCF, if you're considering going to FIU out of state, regardless of the school, we definitely want to be a part of that process with you. So some of the things that we do is we offer individualized like conversations or support. So if after this meeting, you're like, hey, that was a lot of information, I need to digest that with someone else, we are able to schedule meetings with you to talk to either you as a high school student or your family, if you're a parent. And then something else that we do that's really cool is we volunteer at the Pinellas County Schools College and Career Centers. And I have a list because I don't know them off the top of my head. But if you or your student goes to any of the following schools, we do volunteer at those schools at times. So one of them is Boca Ciega, Osceola Fundamental High School, Clearwater, Eastlake, Gibbs, Lakewood, Pinellas Park, and Seminole High Schools. We're not there every day, but we are there. So, hey, if you ever stop by, you may see one of us. And then in addition to our college access outreach, we also offer a 2+2 program, which is not as widely known. We usually get compared to FUSE, which is okay. But the purpose of our 2+2 program is to support students who want to start at SPC and then transfer to University of South Florida St. Petersburg campus specifically. So for those students, we walk them through the application process to SPC. We provide them with individualized support as well as student success workshops. So from the time that they're at SPC until they graduate from USF, they have us by their side to ensure their academic and student success. And then as part of that program, our students are able to potentially receive one of 2 scholarships once they transfer to USF St. Petersburg campus. And then we also provide book scholarships to our past students at SPC if they qualify. So we give out money, we provide support, regardless if it's at SPC, USF, or if you plan to go somewhere else. So that's something important to know about us as PATH counselors. And then the last thing I wanted to just mention was some tips for senior year. I'm very grateful that our guest speakers actually covered a lot of the information I wanted to share. But just to reiterate, I know I've seen some of the questions in our initial registration that were, what if I don't want to go to a 4-year institution? That's perfectly fine. It is helpful to know what you want to do next. So if you know that you want to go immediately into the workforce, but you need to get a skill, starting off with a technical certificate or a certificate from SPC or SPC or PTC would be a really great idea. It gives you short-term education with the ability to go directly into the workforce. And some of those jobs pay extremely well. But if you decide in the future that, hey, maybe I start off at a technical school, but I need some more education to consider or to continue my career, then associate's degrees are a great option as well. So I usually share this stackable credentials because it shows that you can enter education in different points. It does not mean that you have to start off with a bachelor's degree. Everybody isn't always ready for a bachelor's degree, but knowing where you want to start and where you want to end up is a great plan. So if you know that you want to go into nursing, but you're not necessarily ready to get a BSN in nursing, there are other ways to go that route while still making money once you leave high school. And then another thing I just wanted to cover were a few quick tips about college admissions, which again, like I said, all of my speakers covered all this information today. But if you're not sure which schools you want to apply for yet, it would be helpful for you if you do take some time to consider your major or the career that interests you. Doing so will help you to determine which schools may be the best for you, because especially when you look at four-year institutions, a lot of the information is very similar. But if you want to go into a specialty program, all schools may not offer it. So for example, architecture is not a program that's offered everywhere. So if you know that that's a major or a field that you're interested in, that helps you to narrow down which schools you might be applying for. So take some time, do some career aptitude tests. I know that Pinellas County Schools is using Naviance, and there are some career information activities within the Naviance software. So do that. And then there are a few other resources that we can provide you if you specifically are unsure what you want to go into after high school. As Sandy mentioned with the scholarships, it's important to stay organized, so that works for both college applications and college scholarships. So as you are determining which schools you will be applying to, create that list, and then you want to make sure that you're including your application deadlines as well as any application materials that are needed. From one school to the next, those requirements may look very different. As Casey mentioned earlier, USF looks specifically at GPA and at test scores, whereas other institutions may be asking for letters of recommendations, they may be asking for essays. There is a plethora of other types of information that they may need. So you want to make sure that the schools that you're applying to, you have that information available when you are ready to complete that application. And if you are required to do a letter of recommendation, creating a brag sheet or a resume is definitely something to have on hand. So a brag sheet or a resume is just a list of the extracurricular activities, the accomplishments, any jobs and any volunteering that you've done over the past 4 years, because it gives the person that will be writing your letters of recommendation information about you outside of either your classroom or however they know you to talk about in those letters of recommendation. And then also, if you're applying for schools that are a holistic review school, which means that they look at other things outside of your academic curriculum, so outside of test scores and outside of GPA, they may ask you, well, what activities did you participate in? And so having that readily available for you, you don't have to stop and think about it, because I'm sure you recognize that 4 years go by fast. So there could be some things that you did that you want to make sure that you highlight, and in the moment you may not be thinking about them. So taking the time to do that beforehand will definitely help you out in the future. And utilize your resources. So like I mentioned before, there are 9 Pinellas County Schools college and career centers. Visit them if you need someone to talk to specifically about what you want to do after college, or I'm sorry, after high school. But also you can talk to one of us as a past counselor. Like I said, we do individualized meetings. So if you don't have a college and career center at your school, or if you say, hey, these cool people talked to me tonight and you want to talk to us again, we can definitely make that happen. And take the ACT and the SAT. Sadie mentioned that for seniors, there will be an October 13th an October 13th SAT date at your school. There is a specific way that you have to go about registering, so you can speak to your guidance counselor if you have not already registered for the SAT at your high school. And then how to apply. So Kason also covered this earlier, but I will go over this again. There are a few different ways that you can apply for college. The most important thing is that you apply early. The earlier you apply, the better, because who you are quote unquote competing against is usually a smaller group of people. The longer you wait, the bigger that pool becomes. So some of the ways that you can apply for college is a direct application, which means that you go to the website. So if you're applying for SPC, you would go to spc.com or spcollege.com or edu, and you would find the application. You could complete it on that website, and then you're all done. There's also the Common App and the Coalition App. The Common App is an application that students can use to apply to over 900 schools. So you're only putting in your application information once, so you're not putting in your name and the school that you went to several different times is one part, and then for each school that you apply to, if there are additional requirements, they'll give you those requirements for those schools, but you're not constantly doing application after application after application. And then similarly, there is the Coalition app, which only, or not only, it also has a lot of different schools, but it has 150 schools. So if you know that you're planning to apply to several different schools and they're all on the Common App or they're all on the Coalition app, that can save you a bit of time. You still would be required to complete any fees that come with the college application. However, there are some student populations that can get their fees waived. So if you are concerned about the cost of college applications, I highly recommend that you speak with your guidance counselor to see if you qualify for any fee waivers that are available to you. And then these are us, the lovely path counselors. So there's myself, Tanika Walker, as well as my contact information, and Sandy DiCarlo. There's her face and her contact information. And then we also have Charlene Ajmine. She was not able to join us this evening, but she is also available if you need someone to speak with, and that is her name and contact information. In addition to that, there are several different ways to get in contact with us. So I have listed our website, which is www.stpetersburg.usf.edu/path. That provides a lot of information about what we do, both as college access outreach, as well as the 2+2 program that we provide. Then you can also find us on Facebook. It is the PATH program. If you look it up, we're there. And on Instagram at plan_your_path. Both on Facebook and Instagram, I post scholarship opportunities weekly. So if you're ever in need of a scholarship opportunity, every Thursday, there will usually be a scholarship that is highlighted, whether it is a local scholarship, usually through the Pinellas Education Foundation, or a national scholarship. So that is definitely a way to find out about the opportunities that are available to you. And that wraps up our workshop for this evening. We recognize that there's a lot of information about college access, and as you go into this information, it becomes way more individualized because who you are as a student or who you are as a parent to a student, those situations are always varying and different. So there's probably more information that could be discussed. And like I said, if you need additional conversations to figure out what happens next, please reach out to one of us PATH counselors, or if you feel comfortable going to the College and Career Centers at Pinellas County Schools. But we do ask that you take some time to complete our survey. Let us know how we did. Let us know, what we did great on, what was not so great, and how we can continue to improve, because we want to make sure that we are providing this information to everyone who could potentially need it. And that is all from me. So we are open to more questions, and I'm going to put some information in the chat. So some of the things that I'm going to include is the Florida SUS matrix. So if you're interested in other universities across the state of Florida, there is a really cool handout that tells you about the application processes for each of the state universities. And then I'm also going to share some information about the other state colleges and community colleges. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Now can I?
Sure. I'll just thank everybody for coming tonight, and we'll go ahead and close out the recording, and then I will be happy to answer your questions, Jose.